Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandan Rajajana Ranjana Rajajana Ranjana Yashoda Rajajana Jana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Vanachari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Givaradari Girivaradari Yashodananda Rajajana Ranjana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Chidavana Chari Vanachari Vishnupat Paramahamsa Pariraja Acharya Sthita Shishimad Divine Gracious Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupat Paramahamsa Pariraja Acharya Sthita Shishimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. Srila Prabhupada would sometimes discuss, I hope this is where we were up to. Srila Prabhupada would sometimes discuss with Dr. Mishra the aim of his visit to America, expressing his spiritual master's vision of establishing Krishna consciousness in the West. He requested Dr. Mishra to help him, but Dr. Mishra would always refer to his own teaching work, which kept him very busy, and to his plans for leaving the country soon. After a few weeks, when it became inconvenient to maintain Prabhupada at the apartment, Dr. Mishra shifted him to his Hatha Yoga studio on the 5th floor of 100 West 72nd Street near Central Park. The large studio was located in the center of the building and included an office and an adjoining private room where Prabhupada stayed. It had no windows. Philosophically, at complete odds with Prabhupada, Dr. Mishra accepted the absolute truth in the impersonal feature, or Brahman, to be supreme. Prabhupada stressed the supremacy of the personal feature, or Bhagavan, following the Vedic theistic philosophy that the most complete understanding of the absolute truth is personal. The Bhagavad Gita says that the impersonal Brahman is subordinate to Bhagavan and is an emanation from him, just as the sunshine is an emanation from the sun planet. This conclusion has been taught by the leading traditional acharyas of ancient India, such as Ramanuja and Madhva. And Srila Prabhupada was a disciplic succession from Madhva. Dr. Mishra, on the other hand, followed Shankara, who taught that the impersonal presence of the absolute truth is all in all, and that the personality of Godhead is ultimately an illusion. Whereas Prabhupada's theistic philosophy accepted the individual's spiritual self, Atma, as an eternal servant of the supreme spiritual being, Bhagavan. Dr. Mishra's view accepted the spiritual self as not an individual. Rather, his idea was that since each person is identical with God, the supreme Brahman, there is no need to worship God outside oneself. As Dr. Mishra would put it, everything is one. Prabhupada challenged, if each of us is actually the supreme, then why is the supreme suffering and struggling in the material world? Dr. Mishra would counter that the supreme is only temporarily covered by illusion, and that through Hatha Yoga and meditation, one would become enlightened, understanding it is all the supreme. Prabhupada would again challenge, but if the supreme could be covered by illusion, then illusion would be greater than God, greater than the supreme. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Satpala Sarva Siddhantaratnadya Salvaloikakatritpada. O nectar of the ocean of all scriptures, single food of all Vedas, rich mind of precious gems of all conclusive truth, you're the only giver of sight to worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu, Kalidvantadidati, Ya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali, your exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Vakshasharayate, Sarvada Sarvasiddhaya, Shri Krishnaya Namostane. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read you. Every syllable flows down the flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone, by Shri Krishna himself. Mareka Bando Matsangin, Madgiro Manmahadana, Manishtaraka Madbhagya, Madananda Namostate. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asada sadhata dayin vitina chatapara, anamuchakata chinman prema hit kantarospara. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with purity. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the fourth canto, chapter 24, text number 13. Chapter entitled Chanting the Song Sung by Lord Shiva. Prachina Barishat Putra Satradrutyam Dasha Bhavan Tulyanama Vrata Sarve Dharmasnata Prachestasaha Prachina Barhisha Putra Shatadrutyam Dasha Bhavan Tulyanama Vrata Sarve Dharmasnata Prachetasaha Prachani Prachina Barhishat Putra Shatadrutyam Dasha Bhavan Tulyanama Vrata Sarve Dharmasnata Prachetasaha Prachina Barhishat of King Prachina Bari Putra sons Shatadrutyam in the womb of Shatadruti Dasha 10 Abhavan became manifest Tulya equally Nama name Vrata vow Sarve all Dharma religiosity Snata completely merged in Prachetasa all of them being designated as Prachetas. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation: King Prachinabarhi begot 10 children in the womb of Shatadruti. All of them were equally endowed with religiosity, and all of them were known as the Prachetas. Purport: the word Dharma Snata is significant, for the 10 children were all merged in the practice of religion. In addition, they possessed all good qualities. One is supposed to be perfect when one is perfectly religious, perfect in the execution of one's vows to render devotional service, perfect in knowledge, perfect in good behavior, and so on. All the Prachetas were on the same level of perfection. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Amagyavatimirandasyā Gyananjana Shalaka. Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasa Adi Gaura Bhakta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So we are introduced to the Prachetas in this verse. The fourth canto is full of so many pastimes. The Prachetas and their account, including that of King Prachinabarhi, takes up a few chapters. In the following chapters, we will hear about their father being instructed by Narada Muni. And there's the allegory of King Puranjana. Yes. So Puranjana is actually none other than the Pracheta's father, Prachinabari, but Narada Muni is instructing him through this allegory. And he gives him many different instructions how fruitive activity is detrimental for the living entity. Now, the Prachetas are sons of Prachinabhari, and they're very exalted. Here, Prabhupada uses the term perfect. They are perfect in so many ways. They were very obedient to their father, who instructed them, gave them the order immediately upon taking birth, that they should marry and beget children. And before they did that, they first went to perform austerities, so they would be strong enough to execute their duties in the future. But on the way, they happened to meet Lord Shiva. They came upon a very beautiful reservoir of water, and Lord Shiva emerged from there with many of his associates, mridangas and conch shells and kettle drums, and a whole festive occasion. And so as soon as they saw Lord Shiva, they bowed down immediately. Shiva was very pleased with them, and he saw that they have so many good qualities. So he began to instruct them in the form of prayers. And therefore, this whole chapter is called Chanting the Songs Sung by Lord Shiva. So when we hear about the Prachetas, the first thing that comes to mind is austerities. They performed austerities for 10,000 years underneath the water. But the austerities they performed were mixed with bhakti. They weren't just dry austerities. Lord Shiva, in his instructions in the form of the song, concluded by saying, Shreyasam iha sarvesham, Ganam nishreyasam param, Sukham tarati dushparam, Gananor vyasanarnavam. He said, there are many kinds of achievements one can get in this material world. But of all these achievements, the highest is the achievement of knowledge, because one can cross over the ocean of nescience only on the boat of knowledge. Otherwise, the ocean is impassable. And so the knowledge that Mahadev gave to them was knowledge of the Supreme Lord. In those prayers also, he glorifies the form of the Lord, he glorifies the association of his devotees, and the ultimate perfection of bhakti. So actually, the Prachetas, for the 10,000 years after meeting Lord Shiva, in the ocean, they chanted repeatedly this chapter, a song sung by Lord Shiva. And at the end of that, they achieved perfection. What was that perfection? Vishnu himself appeared to them. And he asked them, take whatever the benediction you want. So an important thing to remember is that the austerities of the Prachetas were not just dry austerities. They were austerities mixed with devotional service. Austerities on their own, the Vedas explain that they're actually not very worthwhile. There is an instruction in the Vedas that says, without devotion, austerities are of no use. And if one has devotion, austerities are of no use. In other words, devotion is the important factor. And so we hear in Mahaprabhu's pastimes of one austere brahmachari who was famous for only drinking milk. So as we know, everyone wanted to get into the house of Srivas Thakur, and Mahaprabhu wouldn't let them in. But this one brahmachari, he kept on pushing Srivas, please let me in, please let me in. So Srivas said, okay, your body is pure. You are a Naishtika brahmachari, you only drink milk. You are qualified, you can come in. So Srivas Thakur, he hid them in the corner of the room because he knew Mahaprabhu didn't want anybody in. So he said, you hide behind this curtain and you can watch from there. So Mahaprabhu started his dancing, and hair standing on end, body trembling, he's roaring. But then he stopped his kirtan shortly after and he said, what's happening? Why am I not feeling the ecstasy today? Srivas Thakur immediately in fear, he came up to Mahaprabhu. He knew Mahaprabhu was omniscient. So quickly he came up and he said, my Lord, there are no atheists here. There's just one very austere brahmachari and he only drinks milk. He wanted to see your dancing. And Mahaprabhu angrily, he said, no one can achieve devotion just by drinking milk. And then he quoted that there are so many others who never performed austerity. The gopis of Vraj, Hanuman, Jatayu, Kubja, and a long list of personalities he gives that were pure devotees, although they never performed any austerities. So Mahaprabhu, by this teaching, he emphasized that devotion is the key. Nonetheless, it is true that austerities are powerful. So if they are combined with devotional service, they can be an asset for the devotee. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he gives a definition of an empowered devotee. He says, a person who has knowledge of the Lord and the Lord's will, and who sacrifices to achieve the desire of the Lord, that person becomes empowered. So two things, putting an effort combined with the knowledge of what the Lord wants. So yes, if we perform austerities for the service of the Lord, that is a benediction. But we always have to remember what is the purpose of austerity. So the Prachetas were perfect. They were perfect in so many ways, which may be difficult to understand. Here Prabhupada says they were perfect in religion, perfect in vow, perfect in knowledge, perfect in good behavior. Actually, Prabhupada uses this word perfect quite a lot. Even many of his books are entitled The Path of Perfection, Perfection of Yoga, Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers. There is a chapter in the 7th canto, Behavior of a Perfect Person. He would say, make your life perfect. So what does it mean actually to become perfected? Because when we see around us, there is no perfection. Actually, people don't even like the term. I was once distributing books and I showed this gentleman, The Path of Perfection. Please take this book. Immediately he looked at it and he rejected it. He said, I don't believe in perfection. It does not exist. So it's true. We are living in a world of imperfection. There are 4 defects here in this world. Imperfect senses, the tendency to make mistakes, the tendency to cheat others, and we are in illusion. So when all these are combined, it's very difficult to even become close to perfection. Actually, everything we see around us is disastrous. People's individual character, society at large, the economy, relationships, everything is falling apart, particularly in the age of Kali. Kalir dosha nidhi raja. It's an ocean of faults. It's not an ocean of perfection. But astiyoko mahadguna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajat. There's one good quality about this age. What is that? That's the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, by which everything can become rectified. So perfection is actually devotion. When devotion is there, everything is perfect. When there is no devotion, no matter how amazing a thing is, it is worthless. For example, say the battery on this thing is low. Sorry, we're just going to hook up some power to this computer. So, yeah, everything is full of imperfection. Actually, even if you come close to having something perfect, there's always something wrong. Say, if you have a beautiful vacation, there's always going to be something that kind of is never just quite right. If you have an amazing relationship, something is just not quite right about it. If you have the job you really love, still there's something there that may annoy you. And say you cook a wonderful meal, it's never completely perfect. There might be a bit too much salt, a bit too much sugar. Something's overcooked. Something is not cooked enough. Sometimes it's served cold. But that same thing, again, when combined with devotion for the Lord, it achieves its perfection. There's in the introduction of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says that this work of ours, this attempt to present the Bhagavatam, will be riddled with imperfections. But he quotes Narada Muni, Tadvaga Vishargo, Janataga Biflabo, Yasmin Pratishlokam Abhadavatyapi, Namanyanantasya Shonikitanyat, Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadhava. But yes, there's going to be so many imperfections here. But because this work is directed to the Supreme Lord, because it's done with devotion, it will be accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So everything that we do, whether we're speaking for the Lord, whether we're singing a kirtan, it may not be perfect, but when it's done with devotion, it is, in one sense, perfect. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, I believe we also hear the story of the illiterate Brahmana. Mahaprabhu was traveling throughout South India. He came to Rangashetra, and there was a Brahmana who would always be in the temple, and every day he would recite the whole Bhagavad Gita from beginning to end. And he would repeat the Sanskrit, but it would always be in broken language, never pronounced properly, and people would laugh at him and ridicule him. Sometimes I believe I heard that he would be holding the book all upside down, but he would be in so much ecstasy, tears in his eyes, body shivering, hair standing on end. So Mahaprabhu came up to him and he said, "My dear Brahmana, I see that you're experiencing a divine consciousness. Which section of the Bhagavad Gita gives you so much ecstasy? Please let me know." So Brahmana revealed to Mahaprabhu, "I read this book, but actually I do not know the meaning of the words. I just read because my spiritual master instructed me to do so. And when I do that, whenever I open the book, all I see is the vision of Parthasarathi, Krishna driving the chariot of Arjuna. And he looks very beautiful. His complexion is very blackish. Sometimes he's looking back at Arjuna and instructing him. And so when I see this, I feel so much love within my heart." So Mahaprabhu, he said to him that you have achieved the perfection of the Vedas by this love that you have. So again, he's reciting the Bhagavad Gita imperfectly, but he has achieved the highest perfection of divine love. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he would often have a disciple of his lead kirtan who couldn't keep a tune to save his life. And he was making the point that it's not the melodious voice is the important thing, it's that the devotion is there. That is what is pleasing to the Lord. Srila Prabhupada also once, I heard he was in Vrndavana, Krishna Balaram Mandir, and he was in his room. Those who have been there, you know his room is very close to the altar. It's basically just behind. So he can hear everything happening. So there's one person leading kirtan in the temple room. And Prabhupada heard it from his room. And there were some devotees with him. And it seemed that the devotee was leading the kirtan very beautifully, very melodiously. But Prabhupada sensed there was some false ego and something was not right. So what did Prabhupada say? He asked the devotees, "Who is that demon singing the kirtan? Go tell him to stop." Another time, one devotee was playing the mridanga. He had a beautiful shika. He had a beautiful dress. He was leading the kirtan looked like so much devotion. But as the saying goes, too much devotion is a sign of a thief. So Prabhupada, he saw this devotee and he told him stop. And he got a little Gurukul boy to lead the Guru Puja. So in many ways, we can understand that what is Krishna looking for? He's looking for the love, whether it's our kirtan, whether it's our offering of foodstuffs. Duryodhana wanted to offer Krishna a banquet. He invited him in Hastinapur. Duryodhana was very famous for hosting these banquets. He invite many personalities. The feast will be cooked in gold plates and gold utensils, and everything was flashy. So he invited Krishna. "Krishna, please come. Everyone knows I hold the best banquets." And what did Krishna say? There's only two reasons one eats. If one is hungry or if one has love. And I am not hungry. I am self-satisfied and you have no love. So I am not coming there. Instead, Krishna went to the house of Vidura. We know what happened there. Vidura's wife, she opened the door. She was in so much ecstasy. She took some bananas. She wanted to give Krishna something. She peeled them, but instead of giving Krishna the banana pulp, she gave him the peels. And what did Krishna do? He ate the peels with so much relish. Vidura came. He saw what's happening. Quickly, he stopped his wife. She also understood, so she offered Krishna the bananas instead, the pulp. And Krishna said, "Actually, I relish the peels much more than the pulp because it was offered with devotion." So the idea is there that perfection is actually achieved when one has devotion for the Lord. Now, there's different kinds of perfections, so it's not just black or white. We know that for a devotee, there are nitya siddhas, those who are eternally perfect. There are sadhana siddhas, those who are perfected through their practice. And then there is kripa siddha, those who are perfect by achieving mercy. For most of us, we are on the platform of sadhana, but we do the sadhana to achieve the kripa, to get the mercy. An example of mercy is Mahaprabhu, who wherever he went, he would just embrace a person or he would glance at them and immediately love of God will be manifested within their body. So it just happens immediately. You don't do anything to get it. as the term Prabhupada says, it's causeless mercy. So that is kripa. Many of us may actually think like that. I know many times in my devotional life, I thought, Krishna can do anything. So why doesn't he just make me perfect? Just make me pure, make me love him. He can just, have a magic wand and wave it at you, and voila, you become a pure devotee. I was standing in front of the deities in the first, I think, year of my devotional service. And it was, I believe, a day near Radhastami. And Shrimati Radharani, she had a magic wand in her hand in the Toronto temple. So me and this devotee were looking at one another, and we used to stand in front of the deities and appreciate, oh, look at Krishna's turban, he has this, look at Krishna's feet, they're decorated like that. So we would describe to one another everything that we're seeing, and it was very relishable. But Shrimati Radharani had a magic wand in her hand, and this devotee asked me, look, she's got a wand in her hand. Well, I wonder, what does she do with it? And the first thing that came to mind is that she makes devotees with her magic wand. Why? Because she bestows her mercy. We also hear that Shrimati Radharani is always going like this, giving her blessings. So Krishna can do like that. He can make us perfect immediately, but he doesn't. Why? Because he wants to see the sincerity, the desire. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam yati kudo bilabhyate tatra lolyam apimulyam ekalam janma koti sukritir nalabhyate. The one qualification for pure devotion is desire. If you have the desire, Krishna will give it to you, but he wants to see how much the desire is there. So Srila Prabhupada, once he told his disciples that actually, I can make you perfect right now. So the devotees were like, come on, Prabhupada, do it. Please, make me perfect. But Prabhupada, he added, but I want you to taste the sweet struggle of cultivating Krishna consciousness. So he said that it's a sweet struggle. So we may see in our own life that yes, we're not perfected immediately. We're on the platform, on the uphill climb, which sometimes can be difficult. But at the same time, no matter how many difficulties are there, often we may feel that when Krishna reciprocates, we have this overwhelming feeling that yes, my life is perfect. I have devotees, I have devotional service, I have kirtan, I have prasad. Okay, there's troubles coming from my body, my mind, from the society around me. But still, I feel like I have no problems. When Bhakti Mukunda Maharaj was here, he kept on repeating like that. Actually, we have no problems. The mind makes up so many problems, but we have nothing to worry about as long as we are engaged in Krishna's service. So we want to get the kripa, and that comes through a progressive practice of application. But sooner or later, the perfection will be there. Srila Prabhupada once described that for a devotee, it's like a tug of war. Mind is pulling you one way, and you are pulling the other way. Senses are pulling one way, and your intelligence is pulling you the other way. So he said, this tug of war will go on. But at the end, know that you will be victorious. So we don't want to be discouraged, rather we want to be encouraged and have conviction that yes, we have the highest achievement, as Mahadev says in this verse, Shreyasam iha sarvesham, Jnanam nishreyasam param. Of all benedictions, of all achievements, the highest is the achievement of knowledge. So we have knowledge, and when we apply that through realization, we become perfect. In the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada amazingly says very succinctly that by academic knowledge, one can become confused by apparent contradictions. By transcendental knowledge, one can remain fixed in one's conviction. In the sense that when we read continuously, when we have the knowledge, we know, yes, this is the right thing to do. I'm going to continue to do this. That's why we often see that if a person stops hearing, stops reading Bhagavad Gita, then quickly we go on a downhill slope in our devotional service. So by transcendental knowledge, one becomes steady in one's conviction that, yes, what I'm doing is right. Yes, this is what I'm going to continue to push on with. And then he concludes, by realized knowledge, one becomes perfect. So realized knowledge means we embody, we understand, we have direct experience that I am not this body, I am the servant of Krishna. Krishna is real. Krishna is not just an idea, mythology. No, Krishna is existing. one time Prabhupada also said to his disciples, I wonder how many of my disciples really accept that Krishna is God. So the doubts have to be removed, and when those doubts are removed, then we become perfected. So this is what we can understand from the Prachetas. They are performing austerities with devotional service. The highest benediction that they have achieved is the association of Lord Shiva. By his association, Vaishnavanam Yatashambhu, they are engaged in a higher process. So I thought I'll give it a class. If there's anything anybody wants to add, we can take it here. Any questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
A beautiful class. That is a short text, but has so many deeps in it, and is nicely explained how this all the 10 sons of Prachinvari, they became perfect in all respects equally, and that is very, very important. And you explained how they were maintaining the austerity with the same level of perfection in knowledge and in so other branches, but they were all in a perfect stage so that they become a perfect person to follow the instruction of Lord Shiva about their function, the following function of begetting children or increasing the population of the world. So it's very nice explanation, and it really enlightened me, how Prabhupada is telling. Yes, no matter how perfect you look like, but if your sincerity doesn't show up in your behavior, that there is no sign of perfection. It's all become a show. So to be very honest and very careful about this, not to understand himself knowledgeable or perfect. You should be perfect when your knowledge is connected to devotion. So without devotion, everything has got no value. So that is the sign of perfection, knowledge, and that knowledge is a transcendental knowledge, not the academic knowledge where we can be confused in every moment. But when you have the real transcendental knowledge, you will be guided in the perfect way. And that is the way how to get the perfection. Thank you so much for enlightening this
Thank you.
points to have a good insight of perfection. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for the very nice class, particularly bringing out the importance of perfection. And in fact, you have rightly told, in this material world, perfection is something elusive, in the sense because it is relative. So perfection is possible only in the absolute place and not in a relative place, because relative place in the sense because good is considered good because there is bad, and we consider, and then we can see this is good because this is bad. It is always relative, but in the absolute sense, when we that's why in the transcendental world we have the perfection. And that's why it is told that unless one associates with the Supreme Lord, we cannot perfect ourselves also. Because when we associate with the Lord, and all the good qualities of the transcendental qualities is automatically reflected on us, and in this way we get ourselves perfected. So through devotion and service and the other things, you have very nicely told the importance of knowledge. Without knowledge of the absolute, we cannot advance, because often there is so much in this material world, there is so much obstruction, and always it is the opposite direction. It is the current is so strong in the opposite direction under the influence of Maya, that we cannot overcome unless we have the proper knowledge. And proper knowledge is about Krishna. Knowing the Krishna is the absolute goal, and that is the proper knowledge. When we know about Krishna and Maya cannot influence us, and we can be fixed in our devotional service when we know Krishna. So knowledge is that's why very important. Knowledge coupled with our effort or what you have told, sacrifice or austerity. When both these happens, and only we are fixed in our devotional service, otherwise quite likely that we will be dragged behind under the influence of Maya, and we cannot achieve our goal. So thank you very much for the, although it is a very short verse and the purport is very small, but you have very nicely pointed out two important things. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Prabhu. I think you made a very wonderful point there that only Krishna is perfect, and by associating with him, then those qualities will manifest. It reminded me of in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I believe Rupa Goswami also quotes in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that Krishna is perfect in Vaikuntha. He is more perfect in Dwarka and Mathura, and he is most perfect in Vrindavan. And Krishna has 64 qualities in full, so he's the complete perfect. Om Purnamada Purnamidam. He is perfect and complete. And then Vishnu has 60 qualities, and the living entities have lesser. So we can become perfect, but only to a limited degree. I believe it's 78% of the qualities that Krishna has, we can embody. So we can achieve perfection, but to a limited extent. But Krishna is the only one who can be complete in all aspects. That's also the word Bhagavan. He's complete in 6 opulences. We may have some opulences to some degree, but we can never have them in full. So thank you for the enlightening statement. Thank you, Prabhu. Would anybody else like to contribute?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandot Pranam. Dandot Pranam. Thank you so much for your nice class and your nice references from the various scriptures as well. Very insightful. So yeah, you made one point. You said you met one of the persons on the street, and you showed him this path of perfection, and he said, "Nope, I reject it because there's no perfection in this material world." So I was just thinking, like, probably he is right? In the material world, there's no perfection. For example, even Prabhupada, he said, I have, of course, out of intense humility, he said, I have no devotion, I have no this, but I just have this intense faith. So, which is, so is faith more important than devotion, than perfection? Faith can overcome perfection, or is it something like that, or just service more important than perfection? I just wanted your thoughts on that, Prabhu. Is perfection even required for devotional service?
Yes and no. Krishna's name is Bhava Grahi Janardana, so he accepts the mood in which a thing is offered. And as you said, no matter how advanced a devotee is, he never thinks he's perfect. Mahaprabhu himself says, "Na prema gando stidarapine aro krandami sobhagya varam prakashitum," that I have not a tinge of love of Godhead within my heart. Actually, the more advanced a devotee becomes, the less advanced he thinks he is, the less perfect he thinks he is. In the beginning, a person thinks, "Oh, I'm such a great personality," and now that I'm becoming a devotee, my glories are going to increase even more. But gradually, as we become purified, then we understand humility becomes an integral part of our personality. So we understand that no matter what I do, it's never perfect. No matter what offering I make, it can always be better. As Prabhupada told his disciples, or Prabhupada got picked up in a Rolls Royce, and some his disciples arranged for it, and then some reporter criticized, "Why are you driving a Rolls Royce?" And Prabhupada said, "Actually, it's not good enough. It should have been gold." So we feel like that. Whatever we offer to the Guru, whatever we offer to the Supreme Lord, we feel actually it's never good enough. It's never perfect. But we're just trying to do something with love. And Krishna sees that. If the love is there, then it is perfect. But we're never really trying to we try to do something to our best of our capability, when we're offering some bhoga to the Lord, and giving a class or doing a kirtan or other service managing. We use our intelligence to try to do it as nicely as possible. But we always have to remember that what is Krishna really looking for? He's looking for the mood. Therefore, we have to do our activities and think of him at the same time. So materially, it'll never be perfect, but the devotion will make it perfect. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, thank you, Prabhu. No, thank you for sharing your insights on that. No, thank you very much.
Okay. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai,
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Grace Vrindavan Madhurya Prabhu ki
Jai.
jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuveva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to assembled devotees.